Welcome to Volleyball State, your look at volleyball in 6 rotations. Here are your hosts, Jeff Sheldon and Lincoln Arneal.
Hello and welcome to Volleyball State, a look at the sport of volleyball in 6 rotations and a proud part of the Hurrdat Sports family. I'm Jeff Sheldon.
And I'm Lincoln Arneal.
Today, Nebraska runs its winning streak to 8 in a row against the Big Ten's Hollywood newcomers, but it wasn't all wine and roses. We'll recap the Huskers' wins over UCLA and USC, plus a fun interview with former Husker Lauren Stivrins, who's back home to continue her pro career, and she got her first taste of being behind the mic this weekend on the broadcast team for Nebraska's matches against UCLA and USC. We'll talk to her about that, and we recap the opening week of Big Ten play where Penn State looked great, Purdue was up and down, and Minnesota just can't stop playing 5-setters. All that and more coming up in just a bit. But first, Lincoln, tell the folks where they can find us in the digital spaces.
Yes, we have. We're all over the social media. You can follow us at Volleyball Pod on Twitter. We also have a TikTok account. We post some preview clips. I also post my 3 thoughts after matches on our TikTok account. I do live tweets as well as on our Volleyball Pod on Lincoln_VB, and I'm writing all about volleyball for Huskers Illustrated on our Substack, a weekly roundup, and of course, hopefully you can watch our faces too on YouTube as well too. So
since the match has ended, and we are taping this on Sunday night. This is our first late night recording in a while. Lincoln's already recorded a video. You've written one game story. After the pod is done, you'll write more. It's I'm glad that we can squeeze this in your insanely busy Sundays.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I wrote a game story about that, but we got to talk to Allie Batenhorst after the match. And also I talked to Allie's father, Kurt, who was there wearing a USC shirt. So we'll write more of a feature style follow-up. So that'll be out by the time you listen to this. So go find that on Huskers Illustrated and read about that.
Did you ask Kurt, did he get to sit in seats behind the USC bench, or did they get stuck up in the nose seats above you, even where most of the visiting families have to sit?
I did talk to him about that too, because he was not up, because the visiting section is up above the media section. Most opponents, when they're going out in an away arena, will sit behind the bench, but most opponents also don't play in a sold out 8,000 seat arena. Mm-hmm. So he was not there. He had connection through a friend who got him. They were down in the A section, kind of opposite side of the west bench. So they were down. They had good seats, and he was there with a bunch of family members. So he was not.
Everyone on the internet whines that Nebraska doesn't let the visiting families sit behind the visitors bench and sticks them up in the rafters. And they have, so far their whining has not changed that seating arrangement.
No, they're not. Those fans aren't providing donations. So sorry. But we got a busy show, so Jeff kind of previewed a little bit. We'll start in rotation number 1 with Nebraska's win over UCLA. It was a little bit longer than a lot of people expected. Then we'll jump right into rotation 2 with the USC match. Then we'll go to our interview with Lauren Stivrins, talking about her playing career professionally and her broadcasting. Now she's a professional. She's a member of the media. We welcome her to that club. Then we'll do a look about what happened to the Big Ten during its opening week, and we'll expand beyond the Big Ten and what else happened noteworthy across the country. And we will close the rotation 6 by looking at the I week of Illinois and Iowa. So that's a busy podcast, and we will start with UCLA. The one takeaway when I think about this match is it was going to be a sweep, and then it wasn't. So
a very surreal, probably 10 minutes there for Nebraska. First of all, Huskers win it 25-22, 25-10, 23-25 in game 3, and then come back to hold off UCLA in 4, 25-22. Huskers played well for, I would say, 2.5 sets on Friday night, and then survived an epic collapse, which we will detail here in a minute, in game 3, and held on in game 4. But, it looked like for a while that we were maybe headed for a replay of the Creighton match where UCLA had their legs, had their mojo, and was going to win game 4. But kind of the story of the match beyond Nebraska's game 3 collapse was Taylor Landfair. Taylor Landfair came off the bench, Nebraska's transfer outside hitter who doesn't play very much so far. Lindsey Krause was struggling in game 1. Landfair came off the bench, had 13 kills, a team high, hit .414, added 4 blocks, and really kind of, there were going to be, if this is the role that she's going to have for the rest of the year, kind of a super sub, there's going to be 2 or 3 matches where Nebraska is going to need her to do exactly what she did on Friday, which is to come in and spark kind of a sleepy offense. And that's exactly what she did. And I thought that was really impressive.
And it wasn't, she struggled a little bit, but it wasn't like noticeably like she was really, really playing bad. I mean, she had 1 kill, 2 errors on 7 attacks, but Cook really had a quick hook with her in the first set, and Landfair came in, played phenomenal too. I mean, 13 kills. So yeah, I mean, and she provides just a different look too. I mean, we've seen this in glimpses when Landfair has been on the court before. She really has a heavy arm and hits with power. And I don't know if that was just working better against UCLA's defense and block, but she really kind of embraced the role that she was given, and really was very consistent. One of the more consistent attackers throughout the entire night.
Well, and what Taylor Landfair knows how to do too is how to tool the block.
Oh yeah.
Like, she doesn't just hit sharp cross or deep cross and hit the ball right at the libero or right into the block. You put a double block in front of her and she's going to try to break fingers, and she's going to swipe it off the block, and she's going to tool. And, you saw it again, the one swing she had against USC on Sunday night. She comes in right away, tools the block, the ball lands at the scorer's table, and that's her kill. And I think kind of that's the one big difference I see between Taylor Landfair's swings and Lindsey Krause's swings is, you could put a double block in front of Taylor Landfair and she's like, okay, I will get a kill against it anyway. And, we'll talk about sort of the difference between those two players' weekends here in a little bit. But Andy Jackson also had a great night against UCLA, 13 kills, another plus 400 hitting percentage. She had hit 409. But if you take away Taylor Landfair and Andy Jackson, the rest of the Huskers really struggled offensively. The rest of Nebraska's roster combined hit 044. So some of that's a little I would say deceiving because of Nebraska's struggles in Game 3. Because from the midway until the midway point of Game 3, Nebraska was hitting like well over 400.
You're over 400. Yeah, and I think the one thing I really want to highlight is that second set, Nebraska hit 6-11. But they had 12 kills, 1 error on 18 swings. So I mean, before the numbers at the end look bad, but that was because of that, like we said, that 10-minute stretch where they just 10-minute stretch where they just played horrible and couldn't get a kill to save themselves. So, but yeah, that second, I was like, oh, this isn't the Nebraska we saw the previous week that beat 2 top 5 teams, and it looked like a routine. It was going to happen too, until let's get into it. The collapse at the end of the third set too. I mean, again, no indication. Nebraska hitting above 400. Yeah. They're leading 22-14, and the wheels come off.
That's right. It was smooth sailing for Nebraska in real. Game 1 was tight. Game 2 was not. Nebraska up 22-14 in Game 3. And then I believe it started with a Nebraska. It wasn't a Nebraska serving error. It was a first ball side out from UCLA. Yep. But that brought in UCLA's libero, Kat Lutz, to serve. She's a lefty. She had a hard serve. She was targeting Nebraska freshman Olivia Mauk. Yeah. And Nebraska just could not really get that far in system. The passes weren't terrible. They weren't dimes, but they weren't terrible. But Nebraska became very pin heavy in that 10-minute stretch. Nebraska's middles were not getting set. It was a front row rotation with Harper Murray, Becca Alec, and Merritt Beeson, which you would think is a really good point scoring rotation for Nebraska with Bergen Riley in the back row. And Harper Murray and Merritt Beeson just could not get kills. I went back and I charted this late last night, Lincoln, and took some notes. And Murray and Beeson got 18 swings in this stretch, which turned into ultimately an 11-1 run for UCLA, or a 12-1 run for UCLA. And in 10 of those rallies, Nebraska had a swing, and 18 swings came from Harper Murray and Merritt Beeson, and nary a one found the floor for a kill, which is insane when you're talking about 2 All-American level pin hitters.
Yeah, Rebecca Alec had two attacks during that, and those both came during that first rally, and that ended up.
She got 2 swings on the same rally, couldn't put it down, and then they just didn't set her for the rest of that run.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were talking about. The passes weren't horrible. I mean, Riley had to come out to the 10-foot line, but it was so predictable, and they got good swings too, and it just either it was off the block or UCLA's defense was set up proper. I also went back and charted this too, and just kind of, there's a swing that was blocked, a swing rejected. There's a tip.
Murray and Beeson got stuff blocked 4 times in this stretch.
Well, so of those 10 points, 7 were Nebraska hitting errors too, 4 blocks, and then 3 were just wides. Harper Murray almost got a kill off of one of them. UCLA challenged, it got overturned, so she tried to go high hands and didn't catch any fingers with that too. So it was and Cook used 2 timeouts during this fairly early on. So they scored 3 points in a row, or 2 points in a row, called timeout, nothing, error, kill, timeout, and then 4 straight errors to end that. And by the time Nebraska ended it, it was 24-22. They were facing set point, and just the air got sucked out of the Devaney Center. And I mean, people were leaving for the exits midway through that set too, because they don't want to get stuck sitting in traffic too. And again, they got fooled because it wasn't over.
How I found out about this, like right about game 3 for these evening matches is when I have to go help put kids to bed. And I think I saw Nebraska was up like 20-10. And that was the last time I checked my phone. And by the time I got a kid to bed, I came downstairs and the broadcast was at a commercial break. And I thought, oh, okay, we're into the next show. And I was going to rewind and watch the end of the match. And as I was rewinding, I went back a little bit too far. And I think it was like 22-20 Nebraska. I'm like, oh my gosh, they really let UCLA back into this. And I just watched from there. And I was shocked at how that set ended. I mean, if you look at the numbers for Merritt Beeson and Harper Murray for the whole match, they're almost identical. Both of them had 9 kills and 6 errors. So not great. They also combined for 5 of Nebraska's 8 serving errors. So Nebraska was able to take down UCLA really on the back of Taylor Landfair and Andy Jackson having great matches. UCLA ends up winning that 3rd set. And then game 4 was tight as well. It was tied 18-18, but in what would be a recurring theme throughout the weekend, Nebraska's opponent gifts them a point with a service error. Landfair steps up again with a kill to make it 20-18. And then, Merritt Beeson did close strong with a couple more kills. UCLA gives Nebraska again 2 more service errors. I forget how many they had on the night. Was it 16?
16, yeah.
Yeah, 16 service errors for UCLA. And Nebraska just continues to be awesome at inducing service errors from their opponent. And so it ends with a little more breathing room in game 4. But, Harper Murray, once again, didn't have a kill in the last half of, I think I have, or you have here, her last kill in the match came at 13-7 in game 3. So, that's when you're starting outside hitters that goes a set and a half without putting down a kill. And it's not like the other ones really lighting the world on fire either right now.
Yeah, and that was I didn't realize that till I was looking through the stats. She had 9 swings in the 4th set where she didn't get a kill, and it had to be. Well, I think I had her for 8 kills during that run too, so she had at least 17 kills or 17 attacks without a kill during that stretch. So it was just very unperformant, and she was getting good swings too. It's weird that she would go that long without a kill too. The other one point I wanted to mention about that, we talked about their service errors too, but UCLA switched liberos in that third set. Kat Lutz didn't start the match as a libero. She came in and replaced Peyton Dueck. And so she came in and she's their service errors, but she served 10 or 11 in a row that were in, and really kind of she was serving cross court too, because Malk was on the opposite sideline, and Lexi Rodriguez I think got 1 pass.
She dove in front of Malk to take one of the serves, but it was Malk the rest of the time.
Yep. So, I mean, again, as Nebraska took care of business, beat a team they should beat too, but it makes you wonder, because this happened again against Stanford, where they gave up an 8-0 run, and spoiler alert, they gave up a 6-0 run when they had set point against USC. Like, I don't know if they just get lackadaisical or just like, oh, we got this, or just
same rotation too, I think. I noticed that again. It was at the end of game 1 against USC. Yeah. Same rotation where you've got Murray, Alec, Beeson in the front row, and nobody's getting kills. We're sort of dooming, it sounds like. They did hold UCLA to 153 and beat a team that I think, their record isn't great right now, but that UCLA team has some weapons. They got 17 kills, a match high 17 kills from Sheridan Leverett, who we told you last week was UCLA's best player, had over 4 kills a set. I thought their setter was pretty good. Their libero play wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Anna Dodson, their middle, I thought was really good. So UCLA's got some weapons and they're going to take down some teams this year, but they kind of, yo-yo with the way that they're going to play. And 16 service errors is certainly not going to help you beat anyone.
Yeah. Well, that was what I think John Cook said after the match too. Speaking of serving, Nebraska serving, he said it was abysmal. I forget what the exact term, but he was
pathetic. I remember I was listening to the post game. He was really displeased with the way that Nebraska served, and we haven't talked about this yet, but he kind of allowed it or admitted to it in the post-match comments on the radio, at least at USC. I don't know if he acknowledged this in the post-game either nights, but UCLA match was not a great match from Bergen Riley. Her location was off. Some of her set choices weren't great. When you give up 10 consecutive points, you look at your setting and see why you're not in positions to score. And so, I'm not sophisticated enough right now to know that, whether it was set location, that was kind of the reason that Murray and Beeson weren't killing balls, or if it was just they got to do better with the sets that they do get. But he did mention on the post-match comments at USC that Bergen Riley had a really poor match against UCLA, and yet Nebraska gutted it out and survived in 4.
Yeah, the one time I noticed that, we are up in the nosebleeds as well too. Speaking of where parents sit, we're up in the nosebleeds, so we don't get a very good angle on how far she is off the net. But we watched that Duran, and there was a couple, especially behind Merritt Beeson, where she was arching her back and hitting the ball behind her head. That's a small sample. Then also the worst part of the match for Nebraska too. So from what the little bit that I rewatched there, the set location was meh.
It seems like, Bergen almost is better when she has to come back closer to the 10-foot line and she can push the ball forward a little bit. When she's close to the net, it's almost like she sets the ball too far off the net, like she's trying to push it back away and not trap set her hitters. But, there were some sets that were well off the net. And I think, Krause had to deal with some of that when she came back against USC on Sunday too. But kind of like we were talking last week, like you're not going to get perfect sets every time. You've got to be able to kind of deal with that and still find ways to get kills. So, I think if you ask Bergen Riley, she would admit that this was not her strongest weekend. Nebraska hits below 300 in both matches, and yet they came out with a win in both matches. So anything else you want to add on USC?
I'm right.
UCLA.
Go to USC, yeah. The other California school have rotation too. Nebraska.
This is a tough weekend for USC. They had to play at home on Friday night and had a long 5-setter against Ohio State, and then get on a plane Saturday and fly to Lincoln to get ready to play on Sunday night.
Yeah, and they didn't even get to watch the first set on BTN because Nebraska couldn't finish off UCLA in a sweep. So yeah, and this is the one scheduling of there's 3 home and home series, and then there's one kind of home and away series. So they gave the home and away to whatever school's closest. So unfortunately for UCLA, they both played Ohio State at home, but then had to travel to Lincoln. That'll happen later this year with Washington, Oregon. I think do that with Minnesota, have a split week like that. So tough. Welcome to the Big Ten. Tough opening for the LA schools, but Nebraska did take care of business with a sweep against number 20 USC, 18-22-16. Nebraska's 8th straight win, and it's still the nation's best 33rd straight home victory. So they taking care of business, winning the matches they should at home. We'll talk a lot about that a little bit. Allie Batenhorst came back with them. I thought she played very well given everything else that was going on around the match. She had 13 kills, 9 digs for USC. Really played well and hit above 200.
She's their best player, I think, and you can make an argument for their setter, Mia Tuaniga, who I thought was pretty good on Sunday. Batenhorst is clearly, though, their best attacker. And, if you looked at, if she was still in Nebraska, she'd probably be their 4th best player, but she is a volume swinger and has developed this power tip at USC that she showed off a couple times on Saturday, where she's just tipping straight down over the block or inside the block. She had 13 kills, which was the match high, and she didn't get a ton of help from the rest of her teammates.
No, and she has like twice as many attacks as anybody else on their team. So
she had like 220 more coming into the match than anyone else on their team.
And she's doing well too. I mean, they get her in the back row involved, which she never, when she was playing outside for Nebraska, she very rarely played the back row. So it's kind of good to see her use her height and her athleticism to attack from all over the court as well. So it was a fun night for her. She got a huge standing ovation from the crowd during starting lineups, and she got a little emotional during that. And then during Nebraska starting lineup introductions, they threw all those mini balls into the crowd too. Mm-hmm. Lexi Rodriguez went over there with Kennedy Orr and Harper Murray, and they said they all signed it, wrote a message to her, and gave that to her during that. And again, that got her choked up again too. But really, as far as most emotional as she was during the starting lineup, she locked in and was like we said, the best player that USC has on offense, and really carried the load too. So good job for her to be able to mentally to disassociate the emotion to lock in and play.
Yeah. Harper Murray had 12 kills, bounce back night for her against USC to lead Nebraska, hit 259. Merritt Beeson right behind her with 11 kills and hit 250. I believe those were the only two players that Nebraska had in double figures. Andy Jackson showed that she is mortal, just had 7 kills and hit 188. So that's going to bring down her season attack percentage. Lindsey Krause came back into the starting lineup and remained there the whole match. Not a great match for her. 4 kills, 1 error on 17 swings. She hit 176. We'll talk about Lindsey just a little bit more, a little bit later, but Nebraska really had this match in hand most of the night. You never really felt like they were very threatened. One thing that John Cook was frustrated about, and I don't hear him rip officiating very often, but in the post-match radio interview, he said, and I'm sure the Big Ten office is going to make some phone calls to his office tomorrow morning, but said, we had an official that I thought barely had a pulse. He was really frustrated that these tips that USC was throwing at them that were not being called lifts or throws. And some officials will just let that go, but USC was just instead of taking full swings was tipping the ball inside Nebraska's block or kind of tipping over the block down to the floor, and he thought that those should have been throws, I guess. So he was pretty feisty about that. The big thing that jumped out to me when I realized it at the end of the match, USC was one of the best blocking teams in the country. I think they were third or fourth in the country. Coming into the weekend, averaging over 3 blocks a set. They just had 2 blocks the entire night. And I think Nebraska kind of was wary of the USC block, and they were doing a lot of tipping and roll shots and not just wailing away into the block. But, that's pretty impressive for Nebraska to kind of avoid USC's biggest strength. And that at times, I think, led to some long rallies and some ugly play. But, Nebraska kind of likes to drag you down into the mud and make you play long rallies, and Nebraska won more than their fair share of them.
Yeah, and it's really too that it's surprising that USC is such a good blocking because they're not a huge team. I mean, Allie Badenhorst is 6'5", is by far their biggest player too. I think they have a bunch of 6'1", maybe a 6'2" player on the front line too. So they are not big, but they're good athletes. They got quickness. Their setter setter's 5'9" too, but
she's small. But those athletes that USC had in the middle, I thought were really impressive. They had some nice swings early, and they can serve tough at times and put you in some bad spots, and then get up and send the ball back.
Yeah, Favor Anunua has played. She was on that U21 team that Andy Jackson played with this past year. So they definitely have some athleticism as well too. So, but yeah, we can go quick blow by blow and kind of talk about how Nebraska took care of business, jumped out to a 13-8 lead. And then Harper Murray served an 8-0 run too, that really kind of gave Nebraska a big cushion at 24-12, which was, again, as we talked about previously, a good thing they did because USC ran off 6 straight points to make it. I don't know if anybody was uncomfortable at that point, but it was like there maybe some.
Everyone was groaning because they're like, "Are we really doing this again?"
For sure.
Stanford went on an 8-0 run, UCLA went on a 10-0 run. Now USC goes on a 6-0 run. Like, it's a good thing that you've got these leads when this is happening, because you do this against Penn State or Wisconsin and you're going to lose.
Yeah. But thankfully, Lindsey Krause got a kill, put everyone at ease, and it really didn't get that uncomfortable. But like you said, people were groaning and really kind of not wanting to go relive the trauma they suffered on Friday night. But so the other interesting thing about the whole first set, I mean, Harper Murray, you mentioned, had that 8-0 serving run. She got one attack, and it came late. It was a back row attack even during that 6-0 run. So it wasn't until the final stages of the first set, and she missed on it. So she got one attack and got 0 attacks from the front row. It was just kind of weird. I don't know. I mean, the rotations worked out, or the middles were playing well. We'll say that. So they were heavily involved. So it's good.
Nebraska did score 8 straight points when she was in the back row. So they were as well in hand, and she didn't get up to the front. Nebraska had to do a little comebacking of their own, or coming back. Is that how you say that?
Rallies.
In game 2, because USC led 17-14, but Harper Murray, was somewhat invisible in game 1. She certainly made her presence felt in game 2. 9 kills in the second set helped Nebraska come back from being down 17-14. Huskers go on a 7-1 run from there to go up 21-18, and really the teams just traded side outs from there. Huskers won at 25-22 on a service error, where once again Nebraska finds an opponent that is just going to send them serves all over the place. USC had 13 service errors in the match. And so for the weekend, Nebraska's opponent served out of bounds 29 times over the 2-match period. So, part of that, I guess, you credit the Devaney Center mojo and, good eye from the Huskers to let those go out. But, you're going to run into opponents. If I were doing the book on the Nebraska scout, I would be like, don't try to serve that tough. Like, see what they can do ball handling wise if you just get it in, because it's not like this is a super dominant offensive team, at least at this point in the season, and just kind of see what happens if you don't give them 15 points on service errors. Yeah,
that's been a recipe all season long. And the one key point that the point, the kind of inflection that took over. I mean, Olivia Malk was back at the service line too. She served 4 points in a row, back-to-back kills from Beeson kill, Harper kill, timeout. Then Beeson had another kill too. So really the two people that have been struggled on Friday night really stepped up when Nebraska needed them to take over that second set. And there's a double challenge where Nebraska challenged Merritt Beeson Toole, got it corrected.
You got to love that.
Then
when you come to a volleyball match and all you're doing is not watching volleyball with the back-to-back challenges.
Yeah.
I just looked it up. 9 of Nebraska's opponents this year have reached double digits in serving errors when they were playing Nebraska.
It's great defense right there.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to game 3. This one was over fairly early. Huskers led 9-8 when they went on a 10-2 run. USC just had 5 kills and hit 0 in game 3. This was Nebraska's best floor defense of the weekend. Everyone was getting digs. Lexi Rodriguez had 13 digs in the match, and it really felt like more than that. Kind of a rally that stuck out to me was when Nebraska was up 18-10. It was one of those, 45-second rallies where both teams had plenty of swings and nobody was putting the ball away. Nebraska had just a flurry of digs before I think it was Harper Murray finally was able to put a ball away to put Nebraska up 19-10, and the Huskers cruised from there.
I remember that rally too. I wanted Bergen Riley to put away because she had kills on the previous 2 rallies. She had one where it's kind of a good push set that she put down, and then the previous one was an overpass that she just slammed to the floor too. So I want you love setter kills, and I won 3 in a row just to kind of make the offense run through her.
She is more aggressive this year for sure when it comes to going over on 2.
Yeah, and this is probably a bad match to talk about it, but I noticed on Friday night too, she had a couple solo blocks. I think she's just improved defensively, which then kind of translates. I mean, her game, which we harped on a little bit about her kind of set distribution, but I think the rest of her game is elevated. She's averaging a lot of double doubles, and is also
she's a better back row defender this year than last year too.
And she's getting a lot of blocks. There was one play against UCLA where Rebecca Alec was, I don't know if she got fooled, but she was sticking with the middle attack, and it was a back set to the right pin or to the pin, and Bergen was the only one out there, and she roofed the defense all by herself, and it was kind of her teammates loved it too, so that was cool to see.
What was your overall impressions of USC? The thing I took away, and I know they're missing London Weege, who was really good as a freshman outside hitter for them last year. She's injured right now, but I thought USC's back row play was really soft. I thought there were some shots that Nebraska got down for kills that like your average outside hitter who's playing in the back row would have dug. And there was just kind of some soft shots that I say soft, not like Nebraska was tipping, but like they would hit the ball right at a back row defender and it would go off their arms into the third row. So, Nebraska's offensive numbers could have come down even a little bit more from what they had on against USC. But I was like, there's some pieces here that USC has, but like their back row defense was not great.
Yeah, it seemed like there were a lot of skip shots that weren't hitting the floor, but were going off their arms and either shanked or over their backwards over their heads too. I did. Yeah, that does seem like that was happening too. But it was, I think that, this is the team I think that will get better once you get Weege back and once the pieces figure out how to play and get Ali Bainhorst some more time to get used to a West Coast style offense. It's been a month, but the talent is there. I think that this should be a team that makes the tournament, and they should be able to win a first round game. And if they get the right draw, they get the right night, they could make the second weekend. But there is talent there, so I think it's a win that they're ranked for a reason. To win, Nebraska should be able to look back and say we earned it.
I think USC is going to be real good in a couple of years when Tyler Hildebrand takes over as their head coach. Overall, from the weekend, it wasn't a great offensive weekend for Nebraska, in my opinion. They hit 246 on the weekend. But again, Nebraska does it with defense, 19 blocks in the matches combined against USC and UCLA, and they held those two teams to a combined 147 hitting. Neither of those teams are offensive world beaters, but like they're pretty good. And so that's a really good sign for Nebraska. Kind of where can Nebraska get better? It does concern me what we're seeing right now, offensive production from the outside hitting position. Murray had an average night with some moments of greatness on Sunday against USC, was struggling against UCLA. Lindsey Krause in her last 3 matches is hitting .067, which is 10 kills. John Cook is still sticking with her. He was asked, Lauren Cook asked him point blank after the USC match, like, hey, Landfair had a really great match on Friday against UCLA. Why didn't you start her against USC? And, I think he said, hey, Krause, we're not going to push someone for one bad match. Although I think, the sample size now is growing with Lindsey Krause. Everyone likes her. And she's been around for 4 years, and that counts for something. She has a lot of positive energy. She's a really good server. She's probably their most effective server this year. And so, she gets a little bit more leash than maybe if she was a newcomer struggling. But he said they are going to compete in practice this week. And so, I think Taylor Landfair is definitely going to have some more chances to come in and show what she can do.
Which was strange. We didn't ask Cook about this after the match too, but Olivia Mauk started to serve for Krause in the middle of the USC match. Krause only served 7 times. She did miss one, but they went with Mauk, who plays back row for Krause, and went with her the rest of it too. So and Landfair did get in. She played the last 5 or 6 rallies, so she got some token time.
She got a kill on her first and probably only swing.
She got two swings, so she got 1 kill and 2 swings. So she made her presence felt, which was good to see. But it's
the all-around play is good. And this is just my opinion. The number one job of an outside hitter, especially when you're only playing 3 rotations, is to kill balls. Like Nebraska can beat a USC or UCLA caliber team when their outsides are just kind of so-so. I don't know if you can beat sort of that top tier of Penn State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Purdue in the league without having somebody go off. And nobody really did this weekend except for Taylor Landfair on Friday. So, we're coming off of a week where Nebraska swept 2 top 5 teams. So it's like, what are your expectations really? Like, are you going to play like that every week? It came down a little bit this week, but can Nebraska beat really good teams when they're not playing their best. They can beat good teams. Can they beat great teams and without kind of raising that level of play just a little bit?
The one thing I am encouraged by Nebraska's possibility is they are getting Andy Jackson a lot more swings. I mean, she had 22 against USC, which, the outsides had 29 and 35. They'll always get the most because they get a lot of the junk. But to get your middle 22 attacks is good. And she had 16 against USC. So, again, a notch below what Murray and Beeson got, but right there with Krause, which I thought Bergen forced a couple of them, but if you're getting her swings, that's when the Nebraska offense really has potential to do really good things. If more Andy Jackson can be involved, the better the outcome usually is.
Neither of us have like volumetrics passing numbers in front of us right now, but what did you think of Nebraska's serve receive passing this weekend?
I mean, they only gave up, they gave up 2 aces, so they did that. But I think they made Bergen Riley run a little bit, and it wasn't as sharp as it coming from the Louisville Stanford, that standard, just the eyeball test. It was definitely took a step back and was not as sharp.
They didn't get aced, but they weren't really giving Bergen a lot of 3-point passes, and that includes Lexi Rodriguez. Although teams are smart enough to not serve every ball at her. I thought that Bergen could have been put in some better positions and was having to make some trips back to the 10-foot line, and that might explain why some of the middle numbers were a little bit lower. But just some things to tighten up as you go into October now.
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure out. But so let's throw it to our interview with Lauren Stivrins right now.
In rotation 3. So lucky to be joined right now on Volleyball State by Lauren Stivrins, former Nebraska All-American middle blocker, who's going to be making her debut this winter with League One's Omaha franchise in their inaugural season. Lauren's also going to be making her broadcast debut as a color analyst this weekend for Big Ten Network on Nebraska's matches against UCLA and USC. A lot of firsts, a lot of great opportunities for Lauren coming up, and it's her first appearance on Volleyball State, of course. So Lauren, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited for all of it.
Absolutely. I mean, so many great things happen for you in the volleyball world, it seems, right now. For folks who either were not familiar with the end of your playing career at Nebraska or just have not been able to keep track of you since you left the Devaney Center, can you bring us up to date real quick just on how you're feeling? We got to see you play in the red-white scrimmage, but know that you had some injury challenges to overcome with your back and your knee kind of at the end of your college career and the start of your pro career. How's everything going right now?
Things are going. I am still trying to get back into volleyball playing shape and things, but post-college, I don't know what it was, just couldn't stay healthy. I had my back right before my senior season and rehabbed all of that. Finally felt good and was in a good place. And my first pro career debut thing, I was at AU in Texas, Athletes Unlimited, blew out my knee the second week there. So that really put a damper on things because I just worked so hard coming back from my back. Then rehabbed all of that. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a slow rehab because we found out halfway through that I had torn my meniscus in the process of rehab. So I had to go back in and fix that, which kind of set me back a little bit. But everything went okay after that. And then I ended up making my way over to Italy. So played a season over in Italy. That was interesting. But definitely it was my goal my entire career to make it overseas and specifically to play in Italy because I had heard so many good things about that league. And obviously going through Nebraska, I watched a lot of film on those professionals. So I knew that that's where I wanted to be at some point in my career. And I finally got to that point and it just wasn't all the rainbows and butterflies that I wanted it to be. And so for this next season, I figured I'd be best, and it's the best for my body, my mind, all of that, to be closer to home. And I really want to see a league in the States really take off. And it seems like we have all the pieces falling into place with League One, and just seemed like a really good fit. And I also get to play with my sister. So how can I refuse that?
Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like that word interesting is carrying a lot of weight there too. I mean, what are the biggest cultural differences between volleyball in the United States and professionally in Italy that you kind of discovered during your time over there?
It's so, like the volleyball, there's high highs and low lows over there. Like when it's good, it's great. And when it's bad, it's like nothing you've ever experienced before. I think also coming from a program like Nebraska, I'm blessed with the best. Like I had the best trainers and the best nutritionists and doctors and whatever, all at our disposal. And over there, it's like, it's not really that same way. So I just kind of ran into some issues with that, especially coming off all the injuries. I just had a hard time adjusting to the way that they play over there. And it is a completely different game. I thought that coming from Nebraska, I would be prepared for overseas volleyball, but it's just like here when you jump from like college football to NFL, like that was the same jump that I was making. And I was also making it, taking a year off with all my injuries and things. But like the level there is so intense. The athletes are second to none. In college, volleyball is so like the hitters are programmed, like you kind of know where their strong shots are, what they're good at. But overseas, everyone can hit every shot from every spot on the court. Like it is, every single team has a Lauren Stivrins, a Dana Ratke, whatever you want to call it. Like it's so intense. And their fans are intense too. It was so cool to see women's sports like be appreciated in the way that like, yeah, we get to see that at Nebraska for sure, but it's not like universally as appreciated. But over there, it was really cool to see like no matter where we were going, there was pretty good turnout of fans and fans that were like die hard. They have those big drums and I don't know, all the energy that you could possibly want. So that was really cool, but it is just a different intensity. And then not only are you competing with like the team across the net, but you're competing with your own teammates because everyone wants to play because like that's their way of life. It's their job. So like the team dynamics also kind of take a like turn, which I was kind of expecting, but living it is different than like hearing about it. So that was like a really an interesting hurdle to try and get over too. And I was on a team in Italy that had, I think, 7 foreigners. We had a girl from Germany, Cuba, Japan, Sweden, the Ukraine, and I was the only American until Kendall Kipp joined us halfway through the season. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple others, but like the language barrier was definitely another issue for our team. But it was all a learning experience. I'm very grateful for everything that I went through over there. I feel like it taught me a lot about myself and things like that. But I'm definitely happy to be back in the States and playing volleyball here.
We've talked to a number of players who went through, a similar career path, right? Because until the last couple of years, there were no domestic playing opportunities really here in the U.S. And so you had to go to Europe or Puerto Rico or South America even. Some folks went to Asia to begin their professional careers. What is it that sort of is the most attractive to you about this opportunity with League One? You get to play volleyball here in the U.S. professionally, but it's also kind of a startup league that's building its own brand, that's setting its own kind of expectations. What's the most attractive part of this whole opportunity for you?
I, like what you said, have just seen and heard of so many players that go overseas and just don't have the greatest experience. And I am so excited that like in the US, we have all of the things that you could possibly need to put together this super league. We have the resources, we have, I don't know, doctors and coaches and things like that. We have the platform too. Volleyball is popping off right now. And so I think that for me, I was most excited about like starting something that could potentially be a better option for these athletes. Because as of right now, when you're done with volleyball, it's either you go overseas and like chances are you're probably going to have like a miserable experience. I feel like it's few and far between that come back and we're like, that was the greatest experience of my life. Like I've yet to hear one of my friends say that. And yeah, we have great bits and pieces, but the overall experience is not what it could be and what it should be, because you work so hard your entire life to get to that point where you are able to go and continue playing. And then I kind of mentioned this to you guys before, but then having a bad experience takes like your love for the game away. And having a league here with all of the pieces in place in order for us to be successful is going to definitely like change the game for us. And I really want to be just a part of all of that and to be able to say that, yeah, I saw like what could happen and I wanted to be a part of that. And I don't just like all of my best friends too are doing it with me. And I'm like, why not? Like all the stars are aligning. This seems like such a great opportunity. And truly, there's no better state to want to be back in when you're trying to play volleyball than Nebraska. So I honestly feel so blessed that this is all happening.
Yeah, I think the way the League One is set up too is it's very centralized. Did you sign a contract with the league as a whole and then get assigned to Omaha? Or did you kind of know that where the teams are based? Like, I think I'm going to end up in Omaha.
Yeah, they said for the first season, like obviously they choose where everyone's going to go. And when I originally did sign on with the league, they had told me ahead of time, they're like, we would probably put you in Nebraska. It just makes the most sense for everyone. And I was like, okay.
Well, and you're not the only person that are doing that with too. If you take a look at some of the other League One franchises, like a lot of them have faces familiar to that geographic region.
Yeah. So that was also another like big selling point for me, because obviously this has been such a blessing for me, this state and this sport. So coming back here after all of what I've gone through the past couple of years just seemed right.
When does training camp start for League One's Omaha team? Is that coming up soon?
Yeah, our report date is like November 1st, like the first week of November. We have like physicals and things like that, and we'll jump into practice that first week of November when everyone's all situated. And then the competition, our first game is on the 8th of January. So,
okay.
And you're getting kind of a head start too. I mean, you've been training in the Nebraska gym too, and I think a lot of people know that you made your reemergence back in the red-white scrimmage too. I mean, how long did that take? When I talked to you after that, how long did it take you to kind of recover from the intensity of that match and kind of that many reps in that environment?
I'm still recovering. No, it was awesome. I probably could have had a few more practices under my belt before jumping back into like a real game situation. But again, that was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm not going to pass that up for the sake of, I don't know, me embarrassing myself. I don't mind doing that. I can look back at this and still have a smile on my face. And even if it went as poorly as I think it did in my head, I'm still smiling about it. So that's okay.
How'd that get all set up? Does like John call you out of the blue and say, hey, we could use you for this, or Lindsay or whoever?
I just kind of showed up to practice that week. I was like, hey, I'm back in Lincoln. And like, he's like, yeah. He's like, coach was like, are you going to join us in practice? And I was like, sure. Yeah. I'll like slowly work my way back in. And so the first day I did some things. I didn't do everything. Second day, kind of same thing. And then I was like cooling down one day. And I was talking with Lindsay Wishmeyer, and we were just gabbing away. And she's like, so are you playing this weekend? And I was like, playing what? And she's like, the red white. And I was like, no. She's like, well, we need another middle. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, like go talk to coach about it. And then I was like, so I hear you need another middle. And he's like, yeah, you gonna do it, big girl? And I was like, I don't know if I should, type of thing. It was kind of like this back and forth. And he was like, okay, day up, just let me know how your body's feeling. Because obviously, again, that was my first week back after 7 months off. I was in a world of hurt already. And he was like, day up, he texted me, said, you good to go? And I was like, sure. And so that's how it happened. It was kind of all very spontaneous. I remember texting my parents like right before I'm going up to warm up, and I was like, hey, by the way, I'm going to be playing tonight if you want to watch. But it was so fun.
I mean, looking at, I just pulled out my stat sheet from the red white. I mean, you had seven kills, 5 blocks, maybe a few more errors than you want, but I think that's knocking off the rust. I mean, just what I remember too is just the joy that you played with too. And I imagine, was that the happiest you'd been playing volleyball in years, or I don't know how long, but was there joy just to be back on the court playing in that environment.
100%. I think this place, I've mentioned how special I feel like Nebraska has been for me as a whole, but definitely coming back here and seeing like those girls that I like left Nebraska with, all grown up and things like that. It's like, it's a really cool and special like mom feeling for me. So just seeing them do their thing and how successful they've been in the time that I've been away and things like that. It was just amazing to get back on the court with them and all these new faces too. And this team is just so competitive and amazing that I wanted to be involved. I really did. And I still do. Like, I'm not getting paid to go to these practices and hang out, but I'm still wanting to do it. And I love going and being around it in any way I can. So
being around this group then, kind of gives you a unique experience. You're not coaching them necessarily. You're not competing against them, but you are a part of that group and you get to see things that not everyone really gets to see. What's kind of the vibe you get about this team this year, and how have you kind of seen them grow just over the last couple of weeks?
Wow. So this group, obviously they had a spectacular season last year and it didn't end the way that they wanted to, but to see them all come back and work, I don't know how hard they worked like the last year, because obviously I wasn't around it, but to see them all with like this chip on their shoulder and just the way that they get after it every single day is so special. Because even if one person is not having the best day of their life, everyone else is so quick to like help that person out and build that person up. And they've realized that they're not the same team that they were last year. Last year, they were all young and like hungry and just like fearless and blah, blah, blah. And then so much has happened since the end of that last season. So much stuff outside of the gym, inside the gym. Like, they're dealing with a lot, and that's nothing new for a Nebraska team, but to have like the platform that they have and to be under the microscope that they are, it just shows like a lot of maturity. I think like they're maturing a lot more this year. Last year it was like, whatever, like it's fun, like we're young, like it'll be fine. But this year they're like really figuring it out. Like the leaders are really stepping up. They're having these tough conversations, and early too, which is so cool to see, because sometimes you just like let it build and build and build until it explodes, but they're so quick to like nip it in the bud and like figure these things out, which just shows like how much they are growing up. And I think it definitely translates to the way that they've been playing too. You can tell that, yeah, they're still fearless and they're getting after it, but there is like a little bit more maturity there. Like they're not making these crazy mistakes that they used to make, or I don't know, just, you can just see the growth in all of them, and it's fun to be around.
For sure. And you'll get to be kind of on the other side of things too. I mean, a lot of different angles going on here, but you'll be calling the matches this weekend too. I mean, I don't know if that's another thing that's on your radar much, like kind of like the red-white scrimmage. Like, how long has broadcasting been on your radar, and how did this opportunity come about?
So it really wasn't on my radar at all. I was actually watching a football game with Kenzie Maloney, and she was talking about how she was going to start doing some announcing with the Big Ten, but like she was not the most excited for it, or just like at the time that she had committed to it, she was like really excited about it. And then the closer it got, the more she just felt like it wasn't for her. And I was like, wow, what a cool opportunity. Like if you need a like replacement, like let me know. I'd love to do that. I'll be in Lincoln. I go to all the practices and all the games anyway, so I know what's going on. And she was like, wait, that's actually a great idea. I'll reach out to the person. And so Sue from the Big Ten gave me a call like that next week, and she was like just asking me these questions, and we're just kind of talking volleyball and blah, 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 and life. And then she's like, so you'll be on this week or on this month at the UCLA game and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait,
what?
How about an interview? How about like a run through, like something, nothing like that. But again, I'll be working with Larry Putney. He's done this before. It's not his first time. He knows everything, and he's so great about like helping me out and texting me. And I don't know. We ran through a set yesterday of like the Stanford Nebraska match to try and like see how that all would transpire, like the game like feel, and that was super helpful. He gave me a lot of. I have all my tips here from Larry. But I am like so pumped to do this, and especially with him, he's got great energy, so it'll be great.
Yeah. Larry's a pro, and it's kind of one of those things, I have never done color for a volleyball match, but it's sort of, you're the only way you get better at it is to do it, just like a lot of other things. What has the prep work been like? Have you been, digging into UCLA and USC over the last couple of weeks and just trying to figure them out? Or what does this feel like on the prep side? Definitely.
It's a lot of obviously watching volleyball, but I've also not only been watching, because unfortunately there's not a lot of televised games of UCLA's. There are a couple of USC ones, but just like listening to how other announcers go about the programs and things like that. Definitely a lot of volumetrics, I have to memorize all the names, which I still have yet to do. But going to the serve and passes, it is a lot more prep than I was anticipating. And I don't know, just like getting all the keys for each of the players and where they're from and a little bit of their background and blah, 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 blah. And I just like, I kind of knew that these things went into it, but I didn't understand like how much homework it would be.
Yeah. And you got the opportunity. I think we mentioned Larry and Emily Eamon were calling a match, and you got to shadow them. I mean, what did you learn from that experience to help prep you for your debut?
Yeah, I learned a lot. Actually, two of my biggest takeaways they're kind of funny. Number one, you like can't go to the bathroom. Like they did not get up the entire match.
Especially since they cut the intermission down from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. That
I was like,
experience.
I took my headset off. I was like, should we go get a snack and a drink? And they're like, no, we can't leave. And I'm like, what? So if you catch me in a diaper, don't say anything. Mind your business. And then the second one is, it's crazy when they have the headphones on, how much the production is talking to them as they're speaking. And I'm like, my brain does not work that way. Like if I'm trying to get this thought out, let me get the thought out before you start talking. But they'll be just constantly giving them little bits and pieces. And Emily and Larry are both like so quick to hit the little button on their headset, whatever, and be like, pull up the clip of blah 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 in the middle of the rally, and then by the end of that rally, they have that play ready to go and ready to talk about. And it's a lot more like moving and shaking than I ever thought it would be. I thought I'd just sit there and be like, la la la, volleyball. It's not like that, and it's impressive. It's definitely going to be a learning experience. Give me some grace, everybody, please.
Yes.
Well, I think one of the really cool things you mentioned earlier, volleyball is sort of having a moment, and there's just so much more of the sport on TV now than there was, even 5 years ago, and certainly, like 10 years ago, that there's more matches, which means more broadcasters are needed, and more recent former players or players who have recently finished their college careers are getting opportunities like the one that you are getting, which, for people who are trying to get into basketball or baseball or football, sports that have been on TV widespread for decades, there's just fewer of those opportunities. Is that kind of exciting to you to get to see, players that you played with, played against, have this kind of opportunity, not only to continue playing professionally, but to share their knowledge and learn another side of the sport?
Yeah. I love the way that things are progressing in our sport, and I think it's about time, and I would love to be a part of that, clearly, in any way that I can. But also it's I think when I was watching my first couple of years of like volleyball in high school even, and then even when I was watching when I was here at Nebraska, like rewatching our games and things, listening to some of the announcers, I would just be there like, what are they talking about? And I still find myself doing that like this year. And it's like almost frustrating that we have all these amazing athletes and talent and volleyball players all across the country, but we don't have the right people covering it. And I think it is getting better and better. But even talking with Emily, she said that there was no such thing as like a volleyball announcer when she first started. Like she kind of like was one of the first people to really do that and to do it successfully and to help grow the sport. And I think that's so amazing. And we need more faces and more volleyball people that can give back. But it is just about like the volleyball players giving back. I'm so sorry if you can hear all those birds.
Yeah, Lauren's being attacked by birds.
I'm in my backyard right now. I'm sorry. But it's definitely something that I want to be a part of when the game is progressing and all of these things are finally happening the way we want them to. We need to have the right people backing the sport. And if I can do that, then I'm going to do that.
Well, one of the interesting, like, I'll call it an opportunity for volleyball and TV is announcers have to walk an interesting balance between kind of educating fans who aren't as educated as the players or people who've been following the sport for a decade are, where you don't really have to do that in football, basketball, baseball. But at the same time, you have to be able to position yourself as an expert, as someone who is playing or played the game. And so, I think one of the challenges you might have is I've always considered you a pretty direct person, and being able to, be diplomatic when you're talking about what went wrong on a play. Let's just saying something like, that set was trash. Like, I don't know what happened there. But I'm joking. But that's one challenge I've noticed a lot of announcers have if they come right off the playing court is they can talk about things in a super educated way, but they're talking to an audience that's like, I don't know what a gap set is. And so it's like sharing your knowledge, but then also quickly and succinctly explaining what you mean to someone in the limited time you have available.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a challenge. I'm going to try not to be long-winded when I do all of this, but it is also, it's interesting when like other non-volleyball people get to talk volleyball, because the things that they think are great plays, I'm like, but did you see that one-arm dig in the middle of the rally where like this play wouldn't have continued without all of that? But I will find a way to balance the two of just being short and direct, but also allowing the audience to kind of understand it from my brain and not getting either too technical or too long-winded about it.
Well, I would watch a 10-minute segment while you break down Andy Jackson's slide. That's one thing I would look for. Hopefully they give you the space to do that. I mean, you're known for the slide attack on yours, and Andy is quite athletic and kind of the next generation of the slide attack as well, too. So definitely. If you have a chance to do that pregame, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. I sure will.
So awesome. Our guest today, Lauren Stivrins, she's calling the matches this weekend, UCLA and USC on Sunday. We're obviously talking to her it's Thursday before the matches, but you've already listened to it, how great a job she did. Lauren, are there any other matches on the horizon you got this weekend? And then is it kind of what's on the radar?
Yes. And then on the 11th of October, I have Purdue. And then on the 16th of November, I have Indiana.
Nice. And all when they come to Nebraska. So
yeah.
Good. Well, good. Well, hopefully, that's a lot of times to break down the film and learn and improve. And but I'm sure I wish you the best of luck this weekend, and hopefully it goes well. And you're in good hands with Larry. He's a pro. So
yeah.
Just go to the bathroom before first serve, and then don't drink anything.
Can do.
Easy to do. So thanks again for joining us, Lauren, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, moving into rotation 4. It was the opening week of Big Ten play for everyone. The team that I think looked the most impressive among the conference's top challengers in the first week was the Penn State Nittany Lions. They dominated Purdue on Friday, I believe. It was 25-14, 25-21, 25-20. Penn State rolls. Purdue had entered the match averaging 3.26 blocks per set. Just like USC couldn't find a block against Nebraska, Purdue couldn't find one against Penn State. They finished the match with just 2 blocks. And Penn State's got some great offensive players with Jess Mruzik, their transfer outside hitter, and Cameron Hanna, who also gives Penn State a great pin hitter, had 14 kills and hit .393. Jess Mruzik had 13 kills. Penn State rolls in their first match of Big Ten play.
Yeah, they really. I watched some of that, and it wasn't that close. And Penn State looked like they were operating at a different level than Purdue was.
Penn State probably has the highest offensive ceiling of any team in the league right now, and they're doing it with a freshman setter and a couple transfers in their starting lineup. Penn State hit 373 against Purdue. They lead the Big Ten in attack percentage. I don't know what exactly it is right now, but I know that they're at the top. Izzy Stark, their freshman setter, who's outstanding, 38 assists, 13 digs, a double-double for her. You look at Purdue's big guns, their outsides, Chloe Chacoin and even Eva Hudson both had 10 kills, but Purdue, they can be up and down offensively. They hit 175 against Penn State.
Penn State is hitting 323 for the year, which leads the Big Ten. So they're really doing it. Well, their team is all, for Maruzic was a transfer from Michigan. She's been there a couple of years though. Cameron Hamma transferred from Clemson. She's been there 2 years. And Maggie Mendelson and Caroline Juravicius, our old friends here at Nebraska, they're also playing and getting good minutes as well too. So they have built their team. But I think you mentioned it. The key is Izzy Stark, because that was the big thing that Penn State wanted to go in and get that win at Purdue, because they lost at Purdue last year and they wanted to flip the script. So that to me is the big difference. Is Izzy Stark is leading this offense. So that was on Wednesday night to kick off.
Wednesday night, man, this league plays too much.
Well, they put, except for Nebraska, they had the 4 other teams that were the ranked teams, the marquee returning teams that qualified for the tournament, because the nightcap was Minnesota against Wisconsin up in Minneapolis, and that one was also a barn burner. That went to extra points in the 5th set. And really the odd part of it was too is, yes, it went 5 sets too, but the 2 sets that Minnesota won were not close. They were both 25-15. It was the 2nd and 4th set. So they ran Wisconsin. They beat them down those 2 sets and then jumped out to a little bit of lead. Wisconsin rallied, and the Gophers ended up winning that 5th set 18-16. And really, Lydia Grote, I thought was the star of the match too. She finished with 17 kills, 15 digs, 4 blocks, and she was taking big swings late in the match too, and just really embraced the moment and really kind of rose to the occasion against their border rival, the Badgers.
Yeah, Julia Hansen also had 15 kills for Minnesota. Lincoln mentioned 18-16 in Game 5. Nice to see Melanie Schaffmaster having a nice season. Minnesota setter who's had some injury problems throughout her career, had 47 assists. Minnesota hits 250 for the match. And, we talked about Penn State's hitting numbers. I'm used to seeing Wisconsin hitting up into the 300s. They hit 188 in a 5-setter against Minnesota. Of course, Sarah Franklin, a big night, as she always has, 21 kills. But then, Anna Smrek and Julia Orzel both had 13 kills. You maybe want to see more from them in a 5-setter. 13 service errors for the Badgers, and it came down to who made the plays more at the end of Game 5, and it was Minnesota who was able to put away some kills.
Yeah, I think the 2 other thoughts to kind of follow up on this. The one issue for Wisconsin is their passing. I think they've tried to figure out what was going on. The libero, they started Gigi, and that she's been okay, but
that's charitable. The matches I've watched, Wisconsin has not gotten great libero play.
Yeah, they're doing that thing at the beginning of the year where one had a serve receive libero and a passing libero or digging libero, so it was weird. But during this match, their middles were non-existent. They played 3 middles: Cece Crawford, Devin Robinson, and Carter Booth. They combined for 5 kills, 5 errors on 27 attacks. I mean, they had some blocks in there too, but they're on offense. You can't get that little from it. It's kind of one. I mean, that's a sign of those 2 sets were blowouts, and that's really kind of where it came from. So the other point I was going to make is Minnesota's also dealing with a little bit of injury as well too. McKenna Worker didn't play, and Acevedo, who's a Minnesota native but transferred in from Oregon. She really stepped up to the occasion and had 12 kills. So it was good to see her. And then Minatia, middle blocker, had 11 kills, and she had some big swings late for them. First.
All Minnesota seems to do this year is play 5-setters, and they played another one on Saturday, their second of the week, but this time it was Purdue going into Minneapolis and taking the win in 5. Big story in this one, Purdue had 17 aces in this match, including serving 5 in the 5th set, and 3 of them came in a row. They had 3 consecutive aces they had in game 5. Raven Colvin, who didn't have a great match against Penn State, Purdue's awesome middle blocker, had a career high 19 kills in the win over Minnesota. She added 7 aces. How many middles out there are you seeing serving, 2 aces in a match, let alone 7, added 5 blocks. Our friend Avid says that Raven Colvin right now is the most well-rounded middle blocker in the country and doesn't think it's particularly close. Hard to argue with them when Raven Colvin goes in and puts up 19 kills, 7 aces in a 5-set win at Minnesota.
Yeah, it was a serving. I think that ties the most. They said there was the most since like 1985. They had 17 aces
For
there.
Purdue, yeah. It was the most they've had in like almost 40 years.
I don't know if they've had any more than that, but they had to dig back to the record books for that one too. I mean, just great match from them. Minnesota, like you mentioned, they love playing 5-setters. So they've now already played 6 of them. They're 2-4. So they've beat Texas and they've beat Wisconsin. They've lost other ones. And they're also 6-0 in 3-set matches. They have yet to play a 4-set match this season. So they're getting a sweep or they're going the distance.
Mm-hmm. So those were sort of the teams at the top of, or at least who we're predicting to be at the top of the Big Ten this year. Break up Iowa. They started 2-0 in Big Ten play with wins over Rutgers and Maryland. So
my power rankings look bad.
Oh yeah. Well, Iowa's going to join. I don't know who they have in their first match next week, but they get Nebraska on Sunday. And I imagine that undefeated run is going to come to an end. Some of the newcomers in the Big Ten out in the Pacific Northwest, they got to play at home this weekend, Washington and Oregon, and both went 2-0. Washington's still undefeated. They are one of 4 undefeated teams in the country still?
Yeah, but get ready. They're the ones who play Iowa on Friday, so something's going to give.
Something's going to give. Washington and Oregon both went 2-0. They beat Indiana and Illinois. We'll talk about Illinois in a little bit because that's Nebraska's next opponent. And then Penn State and Michigan also went 2-0. Although Michigan did it the hard way. They went down 0-2 at home against Rutgers on Sunday and had to battle back and win 3, 4, and 5 for the reverse sweep. But the Wolverines also 2-0.
I'm sure the dozens of fans watching that Rutgers Michigan game were so excited to see the final conclusion of that when it was supposed to be switching over to Nebraska USC tonight too. I was wondering what's the discussion like in the BTN control room of like, do we keep this Rutgers Michigan game on or do we switch to Nebraska?
Yeah, USC? Like that was a match that didn't even belong on BTN plus. It belonged on like BTN minus. Luckily I dug up a FS1's login so that I could watch the start of Nebraska USC, but Michigan gets it done there. Should we move on to rotation 5? Anything else?
Nope. Let's get it. I think start with Florida. So we'll turn on Sunshine State. Florida State and Miami, they played twice, and Florida State won both of them over. Both teams are ranked. Florida State is 18, and Miami is number 25 too. So big wins for the Seminoles. And
at least the Seminole fans have something to cheer about in their athletic programs this fall.
Yeah, they actually won the ACC or tied for first place in the ACC last year, so they're not a pushover. But the ACC is going to be a complete juggernaut this year too. I mean, then, for example, SMU swept Georgia Tech earlier this last week, and SMU hit 400 in that set as well too. So it was a rough week for Georgia Tech.
Yes. Yeah. We'll get to the second mishap, unfortunate match Georgia Tech played here in just a little bit. But Florida State gets 2 wins over in-state rival Miami. We look at number 14, Arizona State. Nebraska had a close sweep of them a few weeks ago. They won 3 close sets against number 22 TCU for a 20-22-23 sweep. Jelly Sear, who we got to see up close and personal, Lincoln, really good outside hitter for Arizona State, had 18 kills and hit 429 against TCU. And their middle blocker, Claire Jeter, who had yet to commit a hitting error when Nebraska played them, had just her 3rd of the season. Both of them, I think, all 3 of them came this week. She had a good match against TCU. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I messed up. It was a week ago Friday, so because they played on Wednesday night. Yeah, so she's had 3 hitting errors. So I'm sure she's had
tough September
self-reflection
for Claire Jeter. 3 hitting errors.
Yeah.
Melanie Parra, 14 kills, 11 digs for TCU. She's going to be in double figures every match because she gets like 50 swings a match. But then Arizona State followed that up with a 3-1 loss at number 19 Baylor on Friday. Arizona State, which runs this super fast offense that can make you look foolish if they can pass, they hit just 167 against Baylor. So a 1-1 week for Arizona State. Lincoln, you mentioned SMU sweeping Georgia Tech, where SMU hits 400. You know who else hit over 400 against Georgia Tech and turned them into a fine mist is number 1 Pitt, who is the most dominant team in the country right now. They are a machine. On Sunday, Pitt beat Georgia Tech 25-11, 25-17, 25-8, and out-hit them by, no exaggeration, over 500 percentage points.
They're just on a different level. Pittsburgh has yet to drop a set, and they're just they're running at a very, very high level. I've watched a few of their matches, and they don't have any players that will go off, but just all the pieces fit. They all understand the system. They pass well. They just stress teams a lot with their balance. So they're dominating the number 13th best team right now according to coaches. They're all definitely operating at a high level.
Everyone on Pitt hit at least 400 in that Georgia Tech match. Pitt hit 493 as a team. Olivia Babcock, their opposite hitter, who was the National Freshman of the Year last year, might be the leading candidate at the moment for National Player of the Year. She was in double digits, and she is dominant against everyone this year. So Pitt's going to remain number 1 in Monday's poll. Nebraska is going to stay at number 2. We had another top 5 matchup down in Louisville. Stanford, who doesn't start school until after Halloween, it seems like every year, still on their cross-country road trip, but got swept by number 5 Louisville. So Stanford, after getting swept by Nebraska last week and dropping to number 3, gets swept again on the road by number 5 Louisville. Did you have a chance to watch this match, Lincoln?
I did not. I was had other Sunday activities that I was attending to, so I did not get a chance to watch this, unfortunately.
Well, Charity Looper, who didn't have a great match against Nebraska, had 18 kills against Stanford, hit 316, had a double-double with 13 digs. Anna DeBeer, solid as always, 10 kills, 12 digs from her. Stanford just could not put the offense together. Elia Rubin, 9 kills, but no Stanford player got into double figures. And, Stanford, some weaknesses have now been exposed in these last couple of weeks against Nebraska and Louisville. If you can serve them tough, their block isn't fantastic. Like you can put balls down against Stanford this year.
Yeah, that wasn't the only big kind of matchup. We had the SEC some attention too. I mentioned quickly Oklahoma newcomer got its first SEC win over Tennessee. Tennessee just again is just a confusing and team that has.
This is a top 20 Tennessee team that lost at Oklahoma.
They're tied at number 20 with USC. So they lost in 4 sets to the Sooners, who are there. I think they're receiving votes, so they're outside the edges. But in the big SEC match on Sunday, number 12 Kentucky beat number 15 Florida 3-1 in Gainesville too. It was kind of an exciting finish. They had to go to extra points. Kentucky pulls that out 30-28. So to get the job done. Brooklyn DeLay, again, continues to be, she was the freshman of the year for the SEC last year, 24 kills, and she had an ace on match point. But again, another former Nebraska opponent struggles to serve. They had 18 service errors. They're averaging 4 service errors per set.
I ran those numbers this afternoon when I saw what they were at against Florida. They are legit averaging 4 service errors a set. So you're giving your opponent 4 free points a set, and yet they're a top 15 team. Their offense can be really good, and it was today. They hit 358 For Florida, a couple of players who missed a lot of have missed some time with injuries is back in the lineup, and so that's great to see. Their sophomore opposite hitter Kennedy Martin had 25 kills and hit 412 in a losing effort for the Gators. And then Alexis Stuckey, their setter, who went down early last season with a knee injury, is being kind of worked back in slowly. Mary Wise is letting her play about half time right now. She rotated in the match with their other setter, Taylor Parks, but it's great to see her back. And Florida drops this close one to Kentucky at home, but it's nice to see some of their talented players back in the lineup.
Yeah, and Stuckey did start the match too and played during the first set, and they kind of went, but then they started off slow in the second set, and then that's when Taylor Parks came in second. So I don't know if they're rotating or they needed to change it up because their offense was struggling, but they
played like a situational 6-2 a little bit in that when near the end of the sets when they wanted a bigger block in there.
Yeah, this was her second. She made a return last weekend too, so easing her back after a bad knee injury. But it's good to see her back on the court because last year when she teamed up with Kennedy Martin, they were one of the elite teams in the country too. So it's good. I'm glad to see she's back, and hopefully Florida can find a rhythm with that. So
that's our look around the country. Let's move into the home stretch with rotation 6. Nebraska's week ahead, as Lincoln said earlier, it's I week. They are going to play Illinois on the road in Champaign on Thursday night at 6 p.m. So Nebraska has now played on basically every day of the week this season. This match is going to be on FS1. So look for your volleyball action there Thursday at 6. And then they're going to play Iowa at home Sunday afternoon at 2:00. Let's look at Illinois first, Lincoln. Illinois had to go out to the West Coast to open Big Ten play this weekend, and they got swept twice. They got swept at number 11 Oregon on Friday, and then at Washington on Saturday. I don't know if Washington's going to be ranked in the poll come Monday, being undefeated. It hasn't been super tough, but they've been getting the job done so far. Illinois is 8-4. So Chris Thomas has a winning record this year. He's got Raina Terry back. Raina Terry's been at Illinois for 6 years. I think she teaches classes there now, but she gets a ton of swings for them. Their outside hitter averages 4.3 kills set. They've got a Northwestern transfer, Avery Hernandez, who's second on the team with 2.5 kills a set, but it's kind of been the last couple of years the Raina Terry show. She gets all the swings, and if you can keep her in check, you've got a good shot against Illinois. Also, interesting note, Bergen Riley's older sister plays for Illinois, Reagan Riley. Didn't she start at South Dakota State and transfer in?
Yeah, I believe she started at North Dakota State for 1 year, then played the last 3 at South Dakota State, and then she got her extra bonus year that she is getting a master's degree at Illinois. So yeah, she's it'll be the
Riley reunion.
Riley reunion this week.
Reagan Riley is not the starting setter for Illinois. She does get some time though. Looks like she's a serving sub and does have some assists on the year, so she plays, but she's not the starter. One thing that jumped out to me about Illinois historically, the last few years, has been a good blocking team. They've had some really good middles. They're not this year. They're second to last in the Big Ten in blocks. So Nebraska is going to go from playing a really good blocking team in USC to not a great blocking team in Illinois. And Illinois hit just 0-29 against Washington. They were able to muzzle Raina Terry. She just had 4 kills and 9 errors against the Huskies.
Yeah, and we played the game last week of what's this team's best win as they go into the Big Ten season. Looking at Illinois' schedule, I mean, they don't have a lot of wins that really say, "Oh, that'll help their case if they're going to be a bubble team." They won a 5-setter with Iowa State. They went 5 sets with Lipscomb, which Lipscomb's is a tournament team, but that's not going to wow. Their best win is probably Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky has been they're a perennial tournament team. I haven't watched them much this year, so I don't know where they are. But I mean, if you beat Western Kentucky, that's a pretty quality win. So but their non-conference was not really littered with a lot of high quality teams, and they finished 8-2 non-conference and lost to 2 openers for the Big Ten. So we'll see. But again, Raina Terry always has a chance to go off for 20 kills and carry the team. So
and they're playing in Huff Hall in Champaign, where Nebraska, has struggled at times. You always hear them talk about the air currents in there leading to some weird serving performances. If Nebraska just kind of, keeps it between the lines, they should win this match on Thursday. It would be kind of an SMU level upset, maybe bigger than that if Nebraska were to lose. But hey, that's happened already once this year. So Huskers kind of got to tighten the screws a little bit and get out of Champaign with a win.
Yeah. Speaking of matches Nebraska should win, they take on Iowa. I don't know. Well, I take that back. This is 2-0, tied for first place in the Big Ten, Iowa. So they're 8-6. They play Sunday at 2:00. That match will be on Nebraska Public Media. They did win both their matches, but they went 5 sets with Maryland and Rutgers as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
They run a 6-2 offense, but they're overall pretty balanced. Their top 3 attackers all average between 2.2, 2.7 kills per set too. So you have a lot of attackers, but they're spreading the ball out pretty well too. I will admit I have not watched a lot of Iowa volleyball, but the other stat to know, Nebraska is 38-0 all time against the Hawkeyes.
Yes, it would be a historic loss if Nebraska were to lose to Iowa next Sunday. But hey, if it happens, we'll be back to tell you all about it on next week's show. So that is this week's show. We're so thankful that you're a part of this community and you listen to the show, whether it's through podcasts, online, you watch it on YouTube. We're just grateful that you're part of our community. And if you want to help grow this community and you own or are an influential voice in a business, we encourage you to become a sponsor of Volleyball State. If you're interested in getting your business in front of a great audience of well-educated, good-looking people, contact Brianna at Hurrdat.com, or you can email us at volleyballstate@gmail.com, and we will make the right connections. We would love for you to help us grow this community and grow this conversation even more than we have over the last couple years. And of course, subscribe and review. Grab an elderly relative's phone and subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. That helps us come up in the magical algorithms that Mark Zuckerberg has created to run the universe, and it gets us in front of more people. So, or Lincoln, tell them about the merch. Neither of us are wearing Volleyball State merch because it's Sunday night and we're getting ready to turn in. But there's some great merch out there.
We got merch, you can find merch. You get your Bald Set Spike, your Volleyball State gear, your Justice for Libero stuff at hurrdatsports.com/shop or just come up and say hi to us. Like I was not watching volleyball Sunday afternoon. I went to the Lead Center. I encountered a lovely woman who was taking our photo at a photo booth and said, "This is a weird question, but are you a host of Volleyball State?" And like, yes. So I'm sorry I didn't catch her name, but we'll give you a shout out. You know who you are. So
that has never happened to me.
Oh, it's never happened to you? It was great.
And
she was like, this is a weird question, but yeah. So our fans do exist. People are listening. We encourage you to do that, and also follow along with our social media at Volleyball Pod on Twitter. If you have any questions, comments, ideas you want to send to us, email us at volleyballstate@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Lincoln_VB, where you can read all of my articles at Huskers Illustrated. And you are at by Jeff Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks,
Jeff Sheldon on Twitter. We live tweet a lot of the matches with commentary and analysis and show links, and all that and more. Thanks so much to Kahm Broham for producing today's show. Thanks so much to Hurrdat Sports for giving us this platform. Follow all of the Hurrdat shows on their social media and YouTube channels. And thank you so much for spending another week with us at Volleyball State.